Hello, friends, and welcome to our Dissipation of Glamour webinar. I think this is our 70th, 70, and I'm sending this program from Phoenix, Arizona. But I noticed that a lot of our attendees at this time are from Europe, perhaps, or maybe from Australia, because you see here in the United States, it's already 1 a.m. on the East Coast. Well, this is why we offer these Ask programs at different times, alternating the starting time each week. And we've been sticking so far to the 5 a.m., 5 p.m. time. And this time we're on the morning schedule. So Olivia, Tuija, and I welcome you to this working session. And now what I'd like us to be able to do is just focus for a little while on our togetherness. We are offering ourselves as an instrument to be used to bring in the light. To bring the light into the astral plane where there is so much distortion, so much veiling, so much misrepresentation. It's definitely at this time anyway, the plane of the great illusion. Using the word illusion in a general sense and not so much in a technical sense, about which we will be reading tonight in our work as we read through Glamour, a World Problem. So wherever we may be in the world, in our personality nature, we are together in our consciousness. And we form one field of consciousness, supporting each other, augmenting each other, working together with added force because we are unified around this purpose to help esoterically dissipate the general condition of glamour which holds so many millions, even billions of people in a kind of psychic slavery. The truth coming very much through the fifth ray, through that beam of light from the Ajna center. The truth will set us free. And we have to cultivate the truth, especially in the realm of desire. What is it we want and why do we want it? Toward what do we aspire and why do we aspire in that direction? So we will simply sound an Om and then move into our academic work, which will be followed by our work in the dissipation of the glamour of the lie, the glamour of falsehood, misrepresentation, untruth, the avoidance of truth. It's really, really rampant in the world today. Just getting I can find it, my pitch pipe. I like to make sure we're on the right note. Every note has its own quality, its own ray, its own astrological associations. And in the coming age, the methods of healing, one of the first methods of healing will be along the fourth ray line, and we'll use certain notes and certain colors to achieve certain effects. So we'll use a second ray note, affirming our unity with each other, our solidarity, and it will be the note G, will sound the Om. Okay, friends, now we know how we operate here. So as the reading occurs, please take notes, whether you do so on your computer or whether you are writing in a notebook, whatever. The areas that interest you and about which you have thought or some kind of statement to make, and then we will have our opportunity to discuss a little bit what the book has been telling us. We stopped here last time. When was it? The 9th, and now this is the 16th in Europe, 15th still here in Phoenix. 3 great events are imminent in the world consciousness today. And we note, that esotericists particularly are interested in the dimension of consciousness, because once that is in the condition that it should be, the working out of effects in form will occur properly. So we are not fixated on the world of form, but try to work more in the world of causes, which is the white magical process. This world of causes, from one perspective, is the etheric plane, and from another perspective is the mental and higher mental plane. Of course, we can go on and on until we find for the cosmic physical plane the true world of causes, which occurs on the highest level, which is, let's see if I can, obviously, the logoic plane, up here, not really up, but within, and at a very high level of vibration. So that's called the true world of causes with respect to the cosmic physical plane, but of course it's not just the final world of causes. It goes on and on. We live, in an amazing universe, and we're just awakening to that fact. We'll be learning more and more. So these events are imminent in consciousness, and they will take care of themselves in terms of the right working out upon the plane of form. So the first is the growth and understanding of telepathic work. And if we were to look at the map, this spiritual telepathy occurs on the highest subplane of the mental plane. It's called the city. There is spiritual telepathy. Then we have a comprehension and scientific investigation of illusion and world glamour. Now, that's the very thing that we are involved with. And interestingly, that was the second seed group that he formed, was given to this comprehension and investigation of illusion and glamour. And as you might imagine, the second subplane of the mental plane was involved, particularly in that process. So there is a city there called response to group vibration. And then finally, we have an increase in the right methods of healing. That's the third seed group that he organized. Now, various of us, we have certain leanings these days towards different type of seed group work. Some of us may be into psychology or economics or education or religion or perhaps healing or telepathic work. Anyway, all of those 10 seed groups, if you go into your Discipleship in the New Age book, right around page 40, right in there, you'll see these seed groups described, and it's very much worth a read on that, so you can see that toward which you really gravitate. Now, sometimes we gravitate towards more than one of those seed groups. So he mentioned these, and these were the first three to be organized, and I'm not saying that their origin is only on the plane of soul. Within the spiritual triad, there is a still higher origin for the energies to be used in those seed groups and within the monad itself. For instance, the area that we are working in is particularly emanating from the wisdom point within the monadic vehicle. Will, wisdom, and activity, or will, love, wisdom, and intelligence and activity. That's how to understand it. So anyway, these are developments which are going to be emerging, and we already see it happening, especially, let us say, in the healing area, which might be one of the ones to look at first. Now, in the area of the scientific investigation of illusion and world glamour, we had better operate quickly because the Black Lodge, the forces of obstruction, they very much want to glamorize the human consciousness so it cannot see the truth. And these are days when there is so much untruth out there and people are just sort of making it up regardless of what the truth may really be. So we have a lot of work to do here using the fifth ray, especially perhaps, and the fourth ray of intuition to learn where the illusions and glamours are appearing. So, looking at this a little bit, okay, these three great events in consciousness are emerging. So, if this is so, you can see how groups of disciples can constitute a contribution to the emerging revelation, and how useful our consecrated service can be. So he's telling us, well, we're not known, we're not seen, we're working behind the scenes, but we're working in an occult, esoteric manner, which can be very powerful, very useful, very conducive to improved conditions on the outer plane. So we have to realize and chase away any sense of futility and say, oh, well, I'm only meditating. Meditation is extremely powerful. Now, he's emphasizing here the word our, which suggests the group. I say our advisedly, brother of old, as I am working definitely towards these three ends as a part of my self-ordained service. So he's telling us, that even a master has to choose what service he will carry forth. It's not the kind of thing where Sanat Kumara says, okay, you go here, you go there, and so forth. We have to rely upon our self, which ultimately is the one great self. So this is a self-chosen path by Master DK, emphasizing these first three groups particularly. And then he's hinting to us that we have to do something similar. I ask, he says, for your cooperation and assistance. Now just think about that for a minute. This great initiate of the fifth degree, at least of that, is asking us to lend a hand, to think along the lines that he proposes, to really work in a cooperative manner with him according to his advice and instruction. This is no small matter, and, he seems to need our assistance. Even the Christ does not come as a great conquering figure laying all into correct relationship. It requires human hands and human feet, we have been told by the Tibetan and also by Master Morya. The steady impact of right thought on the human consciousness by trained groups of thinkers. Now think about that, Here we are, supposedly more and more filling the role of the trained group of thinkers, and impacting human consciousness as a result is the method that can be most successfully applied at this time. And here these groups can help profoundly. And, as you know, he intended to create 10 of these groups, but in the last analysis, only the first 4 were created in terms of their entire personnel. Education is the 4th. He began the political work, but then, we must adapt. And that's why the word adapt and adept are very close to each other. They had to adapt to the situation as it existed. The Second World War was precipitated, and the plans that Master DK had could not continue. But I do believe that since this seed group work is a 275-year project, leading, I think, to the year, 2300, would that be correct? From 2000 to 2100, maybe from 2100 to 2200, maybe it's 2200. We have a lot of time to engage under his externalized supervision in the strengthening of the whole seed group process. So the steady impact of right thought, of which we can be capable, right thought on the human consciousness by trained groups of thinkers, is the method that can be most successfully applied at this time. And here, these groups can help profoundly. Now, there's that word. He's not using words lightly. Profoundly, he says. So just think of the responsibility that is given to us. I might say, if only we could all awaken to the kind of possibilities we have, even in the next 7 years, which are the last 7 years of the forerunner, we could accomplish much, and much more than if we kind of just go along in the business as usual method. One of the things which will emerge most definitely during the next 3 or 4 decades, so he's, kind of looking ahead into the 70s and 80s and so forth, is the work that groups can do on levels other than the physical. Now, so many people think, you can only really work effectively on the physical plane, but even, many in the churches bring forward the power of prayer and what it can do, and DK prays, Master Jesus prays, Christ prays, Praying is not something that we dispense with. We apply our Neptunian faculties to invoke and wish for the precipitation of the ideal. But of course, we add to it the occult and scientific methods under the planet Uranus. So we are involved in this kind of work on levels other than the physical. Group service and united effort towards group welfare has for 2 centuries, now he's talking maybe from the time when he's writing this, maybe from 1730, 40, 50, somewhere there, has for 2 centuries been seen on Earth in all fields of human endeavor, political, philanthropic, and educational. I think especially from the year 1825, which would have been about a century and a little more from the time he was writing this. 1825 was a big Shambhala impact, and it coincided with a second ray cycle. So you had the first and second ray coinciding in that year, and all kinds of philanthropic, educational, welfare movements began, as well as a new type of politics which would eventually free humanity from the autocracies of the time. So anyway, for 2 centuries, in all fields of endeavor, group service and group welfare, he's trying to give us the concept of the group, so necessary in the Aquarian age, and really we've been told that unless we can excuse me, think in terms of the group and even of group initiation, the time-space schedule of the planetary logos cannot be fulfilled. So it is very necessary that things proceed now in group form. And I find the next statement very interesting. Group service on the astral plane, and in a way that is what we're doing, because our focus is particularly on the astral plane, even though we are working from the plane of mind as it impacts the astral plane. Group service on the astral plane has been started also since 1875. Now you'll recognize that as really an important date, because it was the founding in that year of the Theosophical Society as an organ, as an instrument for hierarchy, and also that was the year, we are told, that Master DK himself passed the Master's initiation, the 5th degree initiation. It was also as a result of the time when he would begin to think about forming his own ashram. So he became a master, the Theosophical Society started, and the gathering of Master DK's co-workers went forward at that time. So group service on the astral plane, these are how would we know this? We wouldn't, but from the perspective of the master, we are given pieces of information which can be extremely useful. So since 1875, but, and pay attention here, united effort to dispel the world glamour is only now in process of organizing. And this group, he's talking to his group of 9 here, can be a part of the corporate effort towards this end. It has, many different points of attack where we would not be the only ones, and his little group at that time would not be the only one by any means. Corporate effort towards this end and swell the number of those so engaged. Now, even now, we are not quite ready for humanity as a whole, the thinking aspects of humanity, to make that real, concerted attack upon the world glamour. We're just warming up, as it were. I think the planet Vulcan, with its luminosity and its spiritual will, has to first be discovered. This is my own opinion. Before that attack by the leading members of humanity on the world of glamour can be made with utmost success, and we are preparing for that. So he says, train yourselves, therefore, and learn how to work. Well, it is training. We can never forget that. We're not just, praying and believing and going to heaven. We are becoming masters ourselves, however many lifetimes it may take. And remember that quite a number of initiates of the 5th degree will be needed during the Aquarian Age and in the immediate future, such is the kind of transformation promised. Train yourselves, therefore, and learn how to work. It's a very Saturnian thing. It's got a lot of intelligence about it. Saturn and Mercury, the 2 planets together which rule discipleship, and one of my colleagues said accepted discipleship. Telepathic sensitivity is necessarily the objective of all groups of disciples. But it is the main objective of that group, which we call the telepathic communicators. Now, that was the group that Master DK chose first, and it was comprised of those people, I think, who were closest to Alice Bailey, Alice Bailey herself, Foster Bailey, Regina Keller, Roberto Assagioli, some of the more advanced workers who were there at the inception of the whole process. They were forming that group of 9 called telepathic communicators. Here they can render potent service. Groups of sensitives of this order can constitute a working, mediating body and transmit the new knowledge and teaching for the race, because if you think about it, the telepathic communicators located here on the first subplane are receiving their information from the lowest aspect of the spiritual triad, and also from the Buddhic plane, and also to some degree from the Atmic plane. So they have a particular insight into some of the higher levels of consciousness, and they try to bring the testimony of those levels through in an accurate way. So they can mold public opinion and change the current. Now notice that word with its electrical implications, change the current of men's thoughts. All small groups of people naturally and inevitably arrive at a telepathic relation between themselves. This is natural. He said we're all telepathic. We just don't realize it, and we tend to cover it up, and we tend not to cultivate it. So when we work together over time as a small group, we do become telepathically related to each other. And between the personnel of similar groups, telepathy between the groups and not just within our own. And this is to be desired and fostered and should rightly and steadily increase. So even the people in the Observers of Reality, the Dissipation of Glamour group, they were also developing a kind of telepathy, but he really wants them to stay on track because their specific duty is with the Dissipation of Glamour. So he says, but as your telepathic sensitivity is increased, see to it that you are not deflected from your main group objective. He says we can't, with our consciousness, wander all over the planet and meddle and get involved in all kinds of things, because we'll dissipate our energy and accomplish nothing. So see that we're not deflected from our main group objective, which is to study and understand the significance of glamour and the laws for its dissipation. So at least in this group that we have, and which, if we are faithful to it and can stand the pressure, will go on, I think, for some years, because certainly, the greater the light, the greater the dark. And you can imagine, as the period of the hierarchical conclave approaches in 2025, it's not just going to be free and easy appearance. The last-ditch fight of materialism at this particular period of human history will be occurring at the same time, and you can already see it shaping up, the first discrimination being between the selfless people who are living according to the soul and the selfish people living according to the limitations of their personality. So, our job then in this group to study and understand the significance of glamour and the laws for its dissipation. Now, he asks us to do certain things, and maybe we can do them. Maybe, in your meditations, and maybe we all have a meditation program, if you're a member, let us say, of one of the esoteric schools, like the Moria Federation, the School for Esoteric Studies, the Arcane School, that kind of thing, you will have a regular meditation program, and maybe you've made a regular meditation program for yourself. In any case, record and note all telepathic activity and phenomena, and learn to work this way. But regard it, for the time being, right, as a secondary issue for you at this time. So he's trying to discriminate between the work to be done by the first group of telepathic communicators and by this second group of observers of reality, or trained observers, in whom the energy of wisdom must come in very strongly. One of the outstanding characteristics of the work done at the time of the full moon, now note this, because we sometimes wonder, what are we supposed to be doing at the full moon? The energies are increasing, what do we do? Will be the mass of phenomena noted. So basically, it's more likely for certain occurrences in consciousness of a subtle nature to occur at the time of the full moon than it is maybe at other times of the month. So he's asking us, take note, Now, these days of having tablets and all these advanced light computer equipment, a lot of people work on the tablets. Some people work on notebooks with pen and pencil. It doesn't make any difference, just as long as you have some method of recording that which impacts your consciousness. I always kind of tell the story of Beethoven walking through the Vienna woods on one of his long walks, and he always carried his notebook, because at such times he would intuit certain melodies, certain chords, certain arrangements of music, and he had to note them down, or they would just disappear. So the same for us when we have internal phenomena occur. We don't have to interpret it immediately. We just have to accurately make note of what it is. And at the time of the full moon, we expect more of that to happen. So anyway, this is to be expected as this service calls you to work on the astral plane, meaning that some sort of subtle impression is likely to come with this type of work. But it will provide you with a field for the wise use of the faculty of discrimination. Now remember, discrimination is found here as a siddhi, as a faculty, on the highest level of the concrete mind, or on the fourth subplane of the mental plane. And we have to discriminate regarding all kinds of differences. And the fundamental one is between soul and personality, but there are all kinds of lesser discriminations which become very important. So we will use the faculty of discrimination at the time when phenomena are appearing. As a psychic, it's so easy to be misled, even though things seem to be very real. I mean, so many people fall into that. And as a result, they think that what is vividly present in their astral consciousness is real, and it may not be real at all. So, it takes real work here, and he tells us essentially we're not even quite ready for that work. He says here, it is too early as yet for you to work at the problem of separating the real from the unreal. Lead us from darkness to light, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from death to immortality. So at least we're making our way out of the darkness and into the light and beginning to understand what may be real, but maybe not able to make definitive judgments regarding it, judgments about which we can be 100% certain, but we will one day. Your task at first will be recording. Keep detailed records. Preserve the scientific attitude of detachment, as if you don't care what it is you see. You can't react emotionally to what you see. You have to react dispassionately, or not react, but have the attitude of dispassion and write it down as you see it without saying, this is good, this is bad, oh, I'm happy I had that, oh, I'm sad that I had that. No, it is a fifth ray attitude which does not involve the awakening of the emotions. So keep detailed records, preserve the scientific attitude of detachment and of recognition, and write down all that is sensed. Now, these are instructions for us, and our little notebooks or whatever we use during the period of the full moon especially, and during those 3 days or 5 days or 7 days, however long we observe the full moon process, the notebook is always near at hand, so we can accurately write down what it is we experience in our consciousness, because we're just now learning to grow into these subtle areas. So we preserve this fifth ray attitude, recognition, write it all down, write down whatever is sensed, seen, or contacted. And these records will serve as a basis of analysis, if all goes well, and from that analysis we may gather much of value. Now, DK is teaching us now how to develop the cities which he long ago has developed and every master of the wisdom has developed. We may read about many things, we may have a certain mental understanding of many things, but the actual and immediate experience of these things is to be cultivated. And then, once the experience begins, we have to learn how to discriminate what is simply an experience and maybe very illusory, distorted, unreal, and what is a real impression coming from the higher planes and making its way into the astral plane. Well, okay. Obviously, I can see we have some years to go, but I think I don't want to rush it, frankly. And I just want to say that we will get together again before long, in a week or so. And well, that's not going to be the one that's coming up. That's what we just have been experiencing. Okay. And let's see here. Just give me a little moment. I'll try to get this to be correct. And that is so. All right. So this will be the end of the Dissipation of Glamour webinar number 70. And we are on some page or other, I'm sure. I always lose the page 20. I guess we are. And we began our discussion today on page 18, I guess. Okay, 18 to 20. Sometimes, we have to allow for the digestion of the material and cannot push too far too fast, because even though we may have read these words, I've read them a long time ago, and maybe some of you have too, to really absorb what is given is another matter. So this is pages 18 to 20, and our day today is the Ides of March. Oh, beware the Ides of March, huh? Caesar met his end on the Ides of March. And, he was the tyrant, in a way, and had crossed the Rubicon, the so-called red line, And that red line is being much talked about in politics now, beginning of doggy, okay, number 71 and page 20. And there's lots of interest coming up. I always anticipate that we will be able to do more than we actually can do, but we have time, certainly before 2025, to work in this constructive way and to really understand what we are doing so we can really help, lift this pall of distortion and untruth from the astral plane and help people who are so emotionally polarized to begin to think with greater clarity and not simply be driven by their wish life, their desire life, The disciple has the solar plexus ruled not by Mars. Doesn't mean Mars goes away, but that's not the main ruler. It's Neptune. But we also know that Neptune can create many fantasies about what reality is. So we have to elevate Neptune to the heart so that it represents more the intuitive grasp through pure reason. So maybe we can get the higher aspects of Mercury, the higher aspects of Neptune, and have them impress the consciousness with what is true, so we don't get lost in all of these paths which really lead to nowhere that's constructive and cause much suffering. Okay, friends, now we're at that point.
Michael?
Yes, Joe?
Michael?
Yes.
Would you mind correcting the date at the end of Doggy webinar number 70, page 18 to 20, that it is actually 16 March in our records? And
yes,
we meet
that's
again.
Right. I'm doing from where I am, and it's still the 15th here. Okay, so and this will be the 23rd, right?
Right.
Okay.
On the PM schedule.
Okay, 23rd.
Thank you.
And good. Thank you, Joe. Good catch. Yeah, you see, we're all at different times, and yet we're at the same time. All right, thank you. All right, appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, friends, so now, before we get into our meditation, we've covered a few paragraphs here. We've looked at how we have to learn discrimination and how the true separating of the real from the unreal is still a little beyond us. We've learned that the period of the full moon is filled with phenomena that have to be recorded in an objective way. We've learned that we will become increasingly telepathically sensitive, but that our main focus in a group like this is to end the distortions of the astral plane. And Libra, actually is so important there because it's the planet of proportion, not the planet, but the sign of proportion and the sign of harmlessness. We have to have that perfect poise, a completed point of view, and divine understanding. Every one of those is a Libran quality which finally ends the distortions of the astral plane. And you can imagine, this is all being done as we approach the second initiation, more or less. Venus is so important. It's the ruler of Libra, and Neptune is involved there to be intuitive rather than just filled with wishes. And I guess Jupiter is there as well to expand our desires so they become impersonal rather than strictly limited and personal. And then we cannot forget good old Mars and Pluto doing their work and needing to be overcome as we see ever more clearly on the clarifying astral plane. So let's see if there's anything else here. Yeah, the whole idea of the group and when that kind of service began 200 years ago or so, even more, how it has been increasing, how the kind of work we're doing began around 1875, why that was so important for the founding of the TS and Master DK's mastership, how we have to train ourselves, how we have to choose our service, and why these first three of the seed groups are so fundamentally important. Remember, for every 7, there's a 10, and there are always 3 hovering over the 7. So in a way, all these other seed groups are somewhat derivative of the first 3 seed groups, to which Master DK gives a lot of attention as a self-ordained method of service. Okay, so do you have any questions? Do you have any thoughts you would like to express regarding what we've been reading, or just the general topic of truth, clarity, untruth, glamour, distortion, and the ability to see proportion, to see things in proportion. This is such a strong Libran de-glamorizing approach. Is there anything you would like to offer or question? Trying to keep my eye here, and I know Joe will help me if I miss somebody. Any thoughts that you would like to? Now, of course, I open it up widely. I don't just say it only has to be on this reading. It's nice if something from the reading inspired a thought in you that you'd like to clarify or state or whatever, but it can be anything in this whole field of glamour or occultism if you want to bring it forward during our question and answer session. It's good to see you all here. I'm just looking at the names. Want to welcome you, Alexandra, Anne, Annette, Barbara, Bianca, Bibi, Catherine, Clesia, Deborah, Gregory, Gretchen, Helen, Jean-Pierre, Jerry, Joanne, Yopie, Karen, Marianne, Mariot, Martha, Natnia, Risto, Suzanne, Tiu, Tuija, and Joe and I are here. Now that was a stalling technique. While I was welcoming you, I gave you a chance to formulate your thoughts and see if there are any questions or anything you might like to say. And I'm also thinking of questions from my own perspective as I read this. I'm always just filled with questions because Master DK says something as if it's just so obvious to him, but is it obvious to me? do I really see what he's talking about? He's going to be one of the externalizing masters. Not all masters will be externalizing, but 5 great ashrams are now really in the process of working on the externalization. The Master Moria's ashram, Master KH's, Master DK's, Master Hilarian's, and you see a lot of that, and Master Rákóczi, Master R, the Hungarian master who basically is in charge of the entire real manifestation process, the externalization process. It's an amazing thing. They have so many plans laid up, and what we want to be able to do is make ourselves useful, right? Isn't that the key? To make ourselves somehow useful in these times of
Both
crisis. I got it.
Bibi and Natney both have their hands up.
Thank you. And Bibi, yeah, I'll call on you first, Bibi, then Nadia, and then, but Bibi, you're self-muted, so you have to hit your, is it a orange? There you go. Okay, Bibi, go ahead.
Yes, I was thinking he's telling us to take note of everything seen, heard, and telepathic insights or inputs, and to see if things goes well. Something like that, right?
Yes, if we are objective about it and we gather the evidence, then we'll begin to put together the pattern that all of these observations are indicating. But we don't have to try to do that at first. We just have to note with objectivity what may happen. Oh, I received this energy current. Oh, this particular image came up for me. Oh, I felt a connection with this part of my energy system, that kind of thing. And then we review it later and we see what it hints at and what conclusions can be drawn. It's just that we want to leave wishful thinking out of it. In other words, we have to be so objective. This happened, and not that, oh, I wish this had happened, or make a judgment about what happens. We keep our judgments away from this process. Like, oh, this was good, oh, this was bad. No, we just look and see what it was. So that, yes, exactly, Bibi.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not about that kind of messages can come from a lower level, like
They could, of course, they could.
So you just have to keep track on
exactly
your own.
Exactly. What happened? What happened? See, what actually happened. And is it good? Is it bad? Is it high? Is it low? All of that can be assessed later after we've done the job of recording what it is that has impressed us. And of course, if we do this properly, then there will be an increasing alignment between soul, mind, and brain. This is not to say that other areas might not get into it and glamorous kinds of thoughts might not enter or whatever. Our job is simply to take note, make note. And look, we all experience the full moons every month, so we can surely do this. This is a time when we give ourselves space to tune in on the inner planes and see what may come through. Carry your notebook with you because you cannot tell during those days when there may be impression. So it's an experiment. Let's see how it goes. I would recommend it. I would recommend it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Without judgment at first. Without judgment. Oh, what a glamorous thought. Oh, what a wonderful thought. No judgment at first. Just fifth ray recording. What did I see? What did I experience? What exactly was it to the best of my ability to describe? Yeah. Okay, Bibi, thank you for your thought on that. And let's see, we have Natia here somewhere. Okay, yes, Natia, okay. And there you go. Yes.
Thank you, Michael. My question has been answered fully, not quite fully, because I would like to have a personal example from you of of this phenomena.
Of what kind of phenomena might happen? I'll tell you
Just
what.
give me
Well,
something that happened with you.
well, I'll tell you what. I can. Maybe I'm going to go off the rails here just a little bit. I might be quickly corrected, but let me tell you something that happened to my wife and to Helena Rorik.
Okay.
They see stars. Now, Helena Rorik, I'll just comment on her. She saw stars of different types. Some of them were definitely coming from the higher worlds. There were also black stars, which represented the counterforce. And so that's the kind of thing that, one might record. Now, let's see. Sometimes for me, if I talk about myself, and, it's unpredictable, let's see, I get a big heart opening and I feel compassion, waves of compassion where I normally think I would not feel anything, but something triggered the compassion response. What was that? So every time that happens, I have to make a note of the kind of thing that triggered that particular feeling. Then, of course, that kind of thing. Then, at the top of your head, I remember Mary Bailey telling me once that she was meditating and she just felt like the top of her head would blow off. The energy was so intense for her coming down, probably from the soul. She was a very powerful person, a first-rate soul. And maybe, at the time of the full moon, that kind of thing may happen more frequently. I know sometimes, like when we go into the silence, we go into the silence in our meditation and we just, be with each other as a group for several minutes. Right away, I personally feel a lot of this crown chakra type of energy, and I don't think I'm alone. I think many people feel that. So it depends on which chakras are activated, and are they activated under certain circumstances with any kind of consistency. And, of course, the base of the spine area is of interest and will be increasingly activated. So let me just say, call it energy events, image events, those kinds of things, and of course, expanded sensory events. What do I hear? What do I see? What do I smell? Now, we've been told about the astral perfumes which appear at certain times. Now, different masters have different kinds of perfumes associated with them. Master Moria has the freesia associated with him, and I was told by one of DK's disciples that the white rose was connected with Master KH and the carnation with Master DK. I mean, who knows? Even if someone tells me that, I just make a note of it because I'm not going to say this is true, this is false. I don't have enough information yet to judge, but I make a note of it. So those kinds of inner things where you feel the energy flows and a corresponding consciousness or even pain, suddenly even electricity, whatever it is, it happens to different people at different times in different ways. And maybe we can put the jigsaw puzzle together and see, what is triggering these events, and we will have a lot more control then of our energy system. So, that's the kind of thing that I think of, Natia. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Happy searching, happy discovery.
Yeah.
There's something going
Yeah.
on all the time. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay.
Olivia has a question for you.
Okay. Can you please
Olivia
talk more
asks,
about... Okay, go ahead, Joe. Read it.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can you please talk more about developing group cohesion as an individual?
Well, there's always a group objective, and there are individual objectives. There are things that we want personally, but there are purposes for which a group has been called together. And when the group purpose is foremost in our mind, and we acquiesce to the group purpose rather than saying, I want this and I want that, the group needs this, the ashram needs that, the greater ashram needs that. When we start thinking in those higher terms, then there is going to be cohesion in the group and a more or a less personal and reactive interchange between people. You know how we're always reacting out of our solar plexus? Let's say I like this, I don't like that. The glamour of liking and disliking is one of the very first things that has to be eliminated, and all of that is discussed in the 4 eliminations from rule number 11 in the rays and the initiations. When we worked in the arcane school, I remember when I was first working there in New York, and Mary Bailey called me in, and basically the whole little thing that she wanted to convey to me was Rule 11. We try to live here by Rule 11, but before we can live according to Rule 11, we have to go through the eliminations, which precede the activity of Rule 11. And so those eliminations have to do with liking and disliking, a lot of personal interaction. But when we stick to the purpose of the group, and we open our heart center with respect to each other, and we visualize each other as lotuses on the plane of higher mind, then the group unity and cohesion really begins to build. It's an extension, really, of selfishness or unselfishness. We have to sort of drop the self-assertive Martian attitude. And as we get near the second initiation, we can begin to do that. And we say, okay, what really is best for the group according to its purpose and according to the will of the master who stands behind the group. And then I think the kind of unity that we're talking about, the group cohesion, those nice second-rate things will grow in power, and the more individual, limited self-perception of ourselves as a personality will begin to wane. I see my other self, or I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. It's kind of a Gemini thing, you might say, and can be exercised very much at that time, the second-rate time of the Gemini full moon. Okay, well, those are a few thoughts, Clesia, on that matter of inducing, developing group cohesion. It all has to do with our purpose, our true aspiration, our true desire, and not identifying as a personality. Okay. Other thoughts or questions, friends? Mm-hmm. I mean, Master DK's teaching is so vast, and yet he says he's just giving us the ABCs, and so it's like one doesn't even know where to start, but with a little bravery and courage, whatever's on our mind, we can always start with that. And one thing will lead to another until the whole teaching becomes relevant to our developmental efforts. So all I can say is, I think, in our place in the Temple of Silence in Finland, where we do a lot of work in the broadcasting and other activities, we pretty well accepted for ourselves, Tuija and I, that these next 7 years are of fundamental importance. 7 years, of course, is an important cycle, and it's going to get, if anything, more intense and in a way more difficult on the way to 2025. But you have to kind of reach the point in your life where you accept the responsibility and you just say, look, I know it's going to be hard, and everything we can do to assist the master and his ashram, and then, of course, the Christ and his greater ashram, has to be done. You know, it's all about the reappearance of the Christ. It's all about that and the externalization of the hierarchy. Forgetting the things which lie behind, I will strive towards my higher spiritual possibilities. I dedicate myself anew to the service of the coming one and will do all I can to prepare men's minds and hearts for that event. I have no other life intention. So, you know, Master Moria says, burden me still more as I enter the beautiful garden. Burden me still more. Goodness. I wonder how many of us can say that and mean that, because, you know, if I look at myself, oh boy, this has been a tough day, you know, this is, wow, this is a heavy load today, or this week has been so heavy. I'm not saying to myself, burden me still more, right? So I have to correct my point of view. And I think we all have to take as seriously as possible the responsibility of the coming 7 years. And of course, I want to invite you to the conference here in Chandler, Arizona, or at least to attend with us on the streaming work that we'll be doing as we reach out and make it available to people who just couldn't possibly come. But conference time is coming, and it's all about the Buddha and the Christ. It's a great second ray conference, and whenever you're discussing a second ray topic, there's a special kind of stimulation, because, you know, so much of our effort is on the second ray, and this second ray planet and second ray solar system, it is the most powerful of the rays. So I think it's quite essential. Okay, anything else, friends? Anything else before our little meditation? Anyone else want to speak? Okay, well, okay, fine. Look, I'm really happy that you're here. Now let's do some work. All right, so where is it? Here it is. Okay. So we're working on all of this partisanship. You know, what is partisanship? It's just seeing part of the picture, right? You can't be harmless unless you have what's called a completed point of view. Perfect poise, a completed point of view, and divine understanding. Well, we see that completed point of view being sacrificed for personal limited desires everywhere. And we're willing to lie and misrepresent and all the rest of it to defend those partial points of view. You know, political parties are involved in this, and it's very rare that you find the real speaking of the truth when discussing the issues that are important for nations and for groups. So let's add to our quota of truth. What does DK says? That one person thinking truth, now this is thinking truth, can condition the whole surrounding and the people and the atmosphere and the environment around that person. Let's be that person thinking truth. Okay. So we begin, I'm using slight modifications here because of we're not a group of 9 people, sitting down together in the same room or something. I'm modifying this a little. But we will enter into the silence for a while, sensing our relationship to each other as souls and as soul infusing personalities. So in this silence, we are increasing our cohesion and our sensitivity and our strength and effectiveness. Now we're going to go through the protective formula, and in this kind of work, it is needed. We make the sign of what Master DK calls the cross of divinity, involving the eyes, forehead, chest, left eye, right eye. And this cross will be illuminated for our own protection and, in a larger sense, for the protection of the group as we stay in the light and working in an area which can be pretty dark. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light, I work, and from that point, I never move. So that cross of protection is there for each one of us and for the group as a whole, illuminated, so we do not become contaminated by the glamours, which can happen, of course. Now we're going to bring the 3 lights together. We're familiar with that activity. So there is the light of matter, etheric, physical, particularly, and using the creative imagination, we draw it up onto the mental plane imaginatively. And there's the light of mind, where we think and reason, analyze, arrive at conclusions, and we bring these 2 lights together. on the plane of mind. And we use our creative imagination to visualize this bringing together of matter and mind. And there's one more light we must access. So we meditate on soul contact and on the recognition of soul light. And this is the light which reveals unity and is very perceptive. And we draw it down with the imagination and merge it, the soul light, with the other two lights already merged. And now we have matter, mind, and soul, a triple light experienced as one. This will be the light out of which we create our search light. The triple light is shining as one. And then we will say the following mantra and followed by the sacred word 3 times, visualizing all the time the triple light as one. The light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. Now we will use the formula. And as we do so, we're going to visualize a great searchlight turned on, our individual searchlights all blending into the one group searchlight of power of perception, both an instrument of perception and of destruction. And it will turn itself upon the astral plane. So we visualize this, our searchlight going forward as we say the words of the formula. Radiance are we and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the lower world, the inner world of meaning, and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. And so all these higher lights of mind and of intuition are available to us as we relate them to the subtle world of glamour and use the occult methods of improving conditions upon the astral plane. So now we're going to make that beam of light even stronger by the invocation of the spiritual will. So let us, from the monad through the atomic plane, the triad, the jewel and the lotus, the petals of the egoic lotus, which have particularly to do with will, and down through the head center on the astral plane and the head center on the etheric plane. We're invoking the will. We're going to strengthen our beam with that will. A will-strengthened beam of light to discover glamour, to dissipate glamour, a weapon of light, just like the long horn of the unicorn. And we say in affirmation of what we're doing with the will, we say and visualize with power upon its beam. The light is focused on the goal. And so we believe that our beam of light is empowered. We believe it. We visualize it. And together and in unity, we utilize that beam. We will utilize it with the words of power as we add our contribution to the dissipation of the glamour of lying, falsehood, misrepresentation, exaggeration, minimization, untruth, many different names for this glamour which distorts the truth. And remember, when you use your own self-devised mantras or words, repeat 3 times to empower your thoughts. So now, together and activating our creative imagination and utilizing our will-empowered beam of dissipative light, we say, the power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of lying, of falsehood. The power of our united light negates the quality of this glamour from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life behind this glamour of lying, of falsification, of misrepresentation, destroys the life and the vitality upholding this glamour. Now, we're going to have our 5 minutes of silence, We'll be visualizing in our own way the light penetrating into the glamour, producing its weakening, its dissipation. We work in the silence with intensity of purpose, and we wield this weapon of light and see this glamour everywhere being weakened and destroyed. 5 minutes of silence. And as the dark clouds and mists and vapors and miasmas are cleared away, the sun shines upon the astral plane, the sun of truth, the sun of love and beauty, the sun of the will of God, our planetary logos. And it is clearing, and the lie is not there to distort the truth of the divine plan. So together let us withdraw our beam back to the mental plane. The triple light is one, but the beam is withdrawn. We turn off this beam, imagining that we do so together, and imagining that we have done some good. And as we imagine the good we have done, we sound the Om 3 times, affirming that good has been done with respect to the astral plane and affecting also the etheric levels and the mental levels. Excuse me. Okay, friends. Our work for the moment is done. We continue tomorrow, same time. It's the morning schedule with the Soul of Nations meditation. It'll be a broadcast. I think Tuija will be doing that. Let's see. And as you know, we evoke the soul of nations, strengthening the causal body of each nation, and we look for areas of particular strain and stress in the world, and we add our illuminating, loving, healing, strengthening touch inwardly to those places and those events, helping from within where help is needed. So please do join us if you can, and you have the comprehensive ask link. It's always the same, and you can use that. And then Sunday, attracting money for hierarchical purposes. Okay, friends, thank you very much for attending. And Olivia, Tuija, and I wish you the best, and let us continue to apply the inward pressure according to the plan so that the outer events may shape up as they should. Okay, lots of love to everybody. Many blessings. We'll see you before long. All the best.